Okay. Hey everybody, welcome to this Monday episode of Crypto with Chris. Probably going to be kind of a short one today, and sorry I've been just absent the last week. I've just a lot going on personally, getting ready to move across the country, and just busy. But also there wasn't really a ton of price action that was worth talking about last week, but there is now. We've been kind of waiting for this big dip to come up. The big dip that we've been talking about really for like 3 months now. It's finally upon us. So let's talk about it. Let's dig in. Basically, I'm really only going to cover the majors today. I want to dig into Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana, and the rest of them I'm not really going to get too much into because they're going to all be sort of at the mercy of what Bitcoin is doing, basically. And so I'm really just going to talk about where I think those three are going to land. And then I guess if anybody happens to be watching this and wants to pop in the chat and say, hey, look at, whatever alt, I'll pull it up and take a look at it too and kind of tell you where I think it's going to land. But more often than not, I'm just going to say for just about all of them, I would imagine that it's going to land at the bull market support band here at the 20-week moving average, because basically we've been way overdue for a weekly mean reversion, and that's really just kind of what's happening right now across the board. And so likely that's what we're going to see with just about everything that's out there that we're actively involved with right now. But let's look at it with these three and sort of, we can kind of use that as a proxy for everything else. So looking at Bitcoin on the weekly here, the big first level I was paying attention to that I was waiting for, if we zoom in here, is the breakdown below this wick here. And finally today we got that. We almost had it last week. It poked way down there on Friday and then just, bounced off of there pretty hard actually and got right back up to where it was. And I had a feeling that today, come Monday, it was going to break down, and sure enough, it did. So what I'm looking for here, we've got a few different levels that I think are relevant. One this is the BTC CME futures chart. And I knew as soon as I saw the CME gap pop up way back here at the beginning of December, I knew that it was going to come back and fill at some point. And sure enough, it did today. So it does, it almost always does. Without fail, it happened here too. So that was kind of the first level I was looking for, is like, I know the CME gap is going to come around and fill at some point sooner, probably sooner rather than later, not too long after whatever peak occurs after the ETF approval. And sure enough, it did. So that's the first base covered. But from there, what are we looking at? So the next thing I'm looking at is, I know Bitcoin typically does like a 30% correction, I don't know, 6 or 8 times a cycle, a 30+% correction, once the bull market gets rolling. And so I kind of just threw out a 30% just to see, let's see what that would look like first. Oops, come on. So that puts us at, around 34,350, give or take, but that's kind of in no man's land a little bit. So I wanted to kind of look at some other factors too. One, we have the bull market support band, which is a fair bit higher than a 30% correction. And it could very well hold, that could be the support. It could really just kind of come down, because I'm saying all these other ones are going to basically mean revert back to this. So why can't Bitcoin too? And it could. So that means it could come down to somewhere within this band. Right now, the lower part of that band is sitting at around 36,000, 36,250, whatever. And then I think beyond that, if we get some nuke, we get some liquidation cascade kind of thing happening, I think the lowest low that we'd be looking at would basically be this previous range that it broke out at, and that's going to put us down around the low 30s, 31.8, 32, kind of right in there. But I think this is this is not my base case at all. I think this is a pretty low probability chance that it comes down this low. Really, I'm going to be looking for somewhere around the bull market support band or somewhere as low as 30% ish. Like if it did come all the way down to here, that's still 35%. Granted, it does plenty of 35% corrections too, and that's not certainly out of the realm of possibility. That's why I'm saying it totally could do that. Like it could just kind of, if it does that, I feel like it would be like a quick wick down, bounce off this level, bounce right back up, and kind of get right back in the realm of this bull market support band. I don't really see us trading much below that for any length of time. So I think that that's going to probably generally hold a support. And, I think we're still generally in an uptrend. Really what the deal is, right now is it's all about Grayscale. Grayscale is kind of dominating the entire crypto space because there's a couple different things going on. One, they've got kind of high fees. They have high fees, quite a bit higher than all the other ETFs. So a number of people that have been sitting in Grayscale that were locked in there because it wasn't liquid. They couldn't sell up until the ETFs got approved. So finally they're deciding, well, I don't want to pay 1.5%. I'm going to take my funds and move them to a different ETF that has, a fraction of that fee. And so a lot of people are doing that. That's some of the action that we're seeing, but out separately from that, I think the biggest thing we're seeing is there's a ton of entities out there that held a ton of Grayscale, basically like FTX and 3 Arrows Capital and Genesis Capital and all these entities that either have gone bankrupt and are in bankruptcy proceedings or have had some kind of legal settlement against them, and they need to liquidate all of these funds to basically pay for all of these settlements. FTX alone is like $1 billion that they've withdrawn from Grayscale. And so we're seeing, while we're seeing inflows come into the other ETFs, quite a bit, in fact, it's not enough to counteract the downside selling pressure that we're seeing coming from Grayscale. So we basically need all of that to play out. We need all of those entities to liquidate their funds or relocate their funds to the other ETFs or whatever they're going to do. And as soon as that happens, then basically the selling pressure will stop because there's buying pressure coming in on the other ETFs. It's just not, like I said, it's not enough. So that's really all we're waiting for. And frankly, honestly, I wish they would just rip the Band-Aid off and I'm like, part of me is like, I don't know why anybody's buying these Bitcoin ETFs on these other funds right now, knowing that there's all this selling happening on Grayscale. Why doesn't everybody just wait until Grayscale is done, let the price go way down, buy it while it's cheap, and do it then? So it doesn't make sense. But I'm sure some people are doing that. But just, that's what we're waiting for. That's what we're sitting on right now. That's what's happening. That's what's driving the price down. So, yeah. And I don't know exactly when that's going to be done. I don't know that anybody actually does. We have some rough idea of some of these entities and how much money they had and how much money is involved in these settlements, but I haven't seen any sort of cohesive, tweet or source that kind of bundles it all together and gives a good, accurate summary of what's what. So yeah, so really we're waiting for that. Now, does that mean it's going to come down again to the 20-week or down all the way to here? Or if some whale's going to get liquidated and, nuke the price down to here or even lower, I don't know. But generally I'm looking at around the bull market support band, possibly down around this range as the low. And everything. And so that's going to be 35% for Bitcoin. That generally is going to mean 45 to 50% for probably most other alts. I'm including Solana in that equation as well. Ethereum, I don't know, maybe not, but we'll look at that in a second. But yeah, so I had this level as the first. Basically, at this point, the 60-day cycle has been invalidated. We've basically closed lower than the previous cycle, 60-day cycle low here. Like if we go look over here, real quick. So the previous 60-day cycle low, it was kind of here. We kind of called the low on day 68, but even this wicked a little bit lower than that. Regardless, we're lower than both of those now. So that means we're probably looking at a left translated cycle, which means this was probably the peak here on, let's see what day that is. Oops, come on. So yeah, day 24 peak, and then puts us out, what's 60 days out from there, middle of February. So that kind of lines up. So probably we'll, sort of whatever, puke down. I don't know, maybe it'll happen quicker. It doesn't have to go out 60 days, but somewhere in here, we're going to meet up with, we're going to cross paths with this bull market support band, probably go a little bit lower than it, and bottom out and then, bounce from there. So is there anything else here I had on the weekly I wanted to look at? No, I think that's it. So let's look at Ethereum now. Ethereum actually looks a bit stronger. Like if you go back and look at Bitcoin real quick, Bitcoin is broken down well. Oops. well below the 10 week moving average. And then if you look at it on the daily, well below both the 10 and the 20-day moving average. So it's kind of well on its way. In fact, it's halfway through its big correction, I would say already, give or take. Move that back up to 30. Whereas ETH, it barely just today broke down below its 20-day moving average and really was kind of holding pretty well and hasn't really, it's basically just back down into this sideways cluster that it had been in for some time already. So ETH actually looks a little bit better. Like even if we look at the Bitcoin ETH chart, we saw this huge green candle bounce up here out of the bottom. Possibly the bottom is in for the ETH Bitcoin pair. Granted, it's kind of corrected a little bit, because everything is going to correct more than Bitcoin does when it starts doing what it's doing now. So that's why we're seeing this here. But I think that, ETH is kind of has collected itself and dusted itself off and is ready to run again. And really the narrative is coming back to it's now time for an ETH ETF basically. And so that's why I think it's going to run. But granted, it looks relatively healthy. It's still like, again, even the moving averages here have already rolled over and crossed down over each other. And going back to ETH here, they still haven't even crossed over. They're still, I mean, the 10 day is pointing down, but the 10 or the 20 day is actually still pointing up. So again, a healthier structure. This tells me that it, probably is going to hold steady at the bull market support band. But what would that look like in terms of percentage? That would put us down 20, 25, 30. So I don't know, like that seems about right. Actually, maybe ETH isn't going to correct as much as Bitcoin in the end. Who knows? Structurally, it just kind of looks better because I don't really see it breaking down below this big sideways structure here either. I would just be really, really shocked if it did that. I would be really, really shocked if it started trading under 2,000, and holding under 2,000 and closing, regular, multiple days closing under 2,000. So it's possible ETH doesn't correct as much. And then looking at Solana, Solana's at the 10-week moving average right now. And the bull market support band is basically like if I already drew a 50% correction, and what do you know? It's perfect right at the bull market support band. I could see this would be a perfect clean mean reversion for Bitcoin for Solana on the weekly time frame. We had one touch back here at this level, and then we had this little cluster here where it served as resistance for a minute, and then it broke through, and now I can see this level kind of serving as support on the weekly time frame. It'd be a perfect 50% correction, perfect kind of touch on the bull market support band. Nice price. Honestly, I've got some buy orders set at around this level because I think that it's absolutely plausible that it could hit this level, and that would be a great pickup. That would net me a bunch more Solana. So this is really what I'm looking at for Solana, and this makes a lot of sense to me. Sure, there's a chance it doesn't go down as far. Sure, it could kind of come into this cluster here that we've got, or maybe this support level here, which is just a tick below where we're at now, somewhere between the 70 to 80 mark. But with Bitcoin really about to nuke, I feel like I just don't see Solana holding steady at this level that it's at. I think it hasn't had a big, ugly, weekly candle yet. So I think it just makes all the sense in the world for it to kind of come down to this level, and that would be, perfect. So that's really what I'm looking at. So one thing I've been paying attention to is that I've kind of learned is in terms of the ETFs, they settle. So how the ETFs basically work is all of the buyers and sellers of the ETF, they do all their buying and selling throughout the day. The funds process those transactions, and then at the end of the day, every single weekday, they go and those funds then go and like settle up on the exchanges, like if they need to buy or sell to basically settle up their funds. And so what that looks like is how that plays out is every weekday at 20:55 UTC time if we go back and look, and I'll show you here, on the 5-minute candle, every weekday at 20:55 is when they settle up, and we get this huge volume spike. And generally, because of all the GBTC stuff, it's going to be big, downward nuke candles, basically. But, So this was Friday's candle. And it was, kind of going along. And then, of course, the weekend came and it just went sideways like it's been doing. But if you look every weekday at 2055, here's the next one. Boom. Huge volume spike, huge red candle. And then the day before that, again, 2055, boom, big volume spike. Not as big of a red candle because the net selling wasn't as much. But this is the action. So what I'm saying here is set your clocks for 2055 UTC time, whatever that is. I don't know wherever you are. For me on the East Coast in the US, that's 3:55 p.m. Look, and just watch this play out. Make sure you have the Coinbase exchange pulled up, and the 5-minute pair or the 5-minute BTC USD, and just watch it. It's like fireworks. It's crazy. And so, it's like, it's fun to know when some big sort of volume event is going to happen like that. Yeah, we had a pretty big volume event here happen already today, but again, coming up, whatever, in about 40 minutes, whatever, there's going to be a big event, a big volume spike, and a big red candle, because we know that Grayscale, I think, sold like 900 or moved like $900 million in Bitcoin to Coinbase. So yeah, it's going to be exciting. So that's kind of the fun thing that I'm going to be paying attention to kind of going forward in terms of what the ETFs are going to do, because they're going to kind of just wreak havoc at the end of the day for everything for the foreseeable future now. So and it'll be interesting to see if it comes back and reclaims this level, but I do think that ultimately, come 355, it's gonna drop back down again. So we shall see. Yeah, outside of that, that's really kind of it. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to dig much into the alts because they're all going to kind of, go down over the next week or so, week to 2 weeks, I think. And so it's just right now I've kind of de-risked a bit. I've got a chunk of cash and I'm mostly in Bitcoin. I'm not in any Solana, and I'm just kind of, letting that sort of ride down. And I've got some choice buy orders set at some of these lower levels. So that's how I'm playing it. And that's what we've been expecting for months now. And it's finally due. And then, I mean, this is a good thing. We need this. This is kind of the sort of thing we need for, to maintain a healthy uptrend. So yeah, just kind of simple as that. All right. Yeah, I think that's it. I will hopefully do a show on Thursday and see where things are at, and see if, there's continued Grayscale selling, and go from there. So have a good week, everybody. And